Sergeant and Mrs. Smith, you're going to love this house.
Is that a tub in the kitchen?
There's no field manual for finding the right home. But when you do, USAA Homeowners Insurance can help protect it the right way. Restrictions apply.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Social Media Derby. We have an excellent episode with a lot of football to talk about during this episode, with the Spurs Arsenal North London derby, then the Man United Southampton game, and then obviously yesterday's smashing of Barnsley by Man United in the Carabao Cup. But before we get into any of that, as usual, for those of you listening or watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video and share it if you can. Comment down below with anything you'd like to see us talk about or hear us talk about in any next episodes. And for those of you listening on Spotify, Apple, or any other podcasting platform, please follow and give us a 5-star review. It helps a lot with the algorithms and pushing us up to more viewers and more listeners. All right. Ant, how you doing, mate? I know you're a little bit under the weather. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm under the weather or I just I've got like a sore throat or something. I'm not sure, but yeah, I had a pretty jam-packed schedule over the weekend for work. And I think I've either caught something and it's lingering in my throat, or I've got a sore throat from just working too long and probably not wrapping up warm enough. But yeah, I'll be animated and I'll speak as much as I can about both of these. I was going to say both of these games, or three of these games, as well as the previews for this for the next couple of fixtures, because you guys have got a couple of humdingers on the horizon. And we've got a pretty tough game as well in game week 5. So yeah, looking forward to it, man. Let's get into it.
All right, so let's get into it then. We'll start off with the North London derby. Happened on the Sunday, but we'll obviously go through Arsenal first so we can get into the Man United stuff all in one group. So obviously Arsenal won 1-0, a goal in about the 64th minute against Spurs. I'll be honest with you, a pretty good game for the neutral. I know that it was pretty exciting, kind of end to end. There weren't a massive amount of like real clear-cut chances for either team, generally speaking, but it definitely was quite a cagey game in terms of like it really being competitive and both teams kind of really trying to push each other to the limits. Tottenham obviously started a lot brighter than we did. I think they had pretty much most of the ball for the first probably, I don't know, for at least the first 30 minutes, but probably even longer than that. And really had Raya kind of scrambling, made some good saves. I do remember a header, obviously, also going past the post that had Raya really scrambling across the goal mouth. But it was looking like an all Tottenham kind of affair. And then Arsenal started to get back into it, got some stuff on the counter. Martinelli had a good chance that he really didn't do enough with. I do see a lot of people hammering him, and we'll get onto that a little bit later. But it wasn't horrible, but he just probably should have been a bit more clinical. And maybe if it was Trossard, he would have done so. And then obviously before halftime, Solanke's header came in, very close to getting in the inside of the post. Second half continues very similar kind of fashion. Van de Ven, good header, good save from Raya. But then the exact thing that I think all Tottenham fans were afraid of happened, right? The infamous Arsenal set piece now has become very infamous for kind of the Salisbury tactics that we do during it, but also the effectiveness that we have against a lot of teams in scoring from it. Obviously, our set piece coach, shout out you, my guy. You're doing a great job. Keep that up. But Gabriel rises above old Romero, dashes him out of the way. Romero kind of doesn't even look really bothered, and he manages to get a very clear, open header straight past Vicario, who may as well not even be there for set pieces, really. And that kind of ends up being the decisive action during the game. Nothing else really happens from there. Maddison gets hooked early. See some Tottenham fans talking about that, not very happy about it. But yeah, there's not really any threat from there. You could call Tottenham kind of impotent from there. They didn't really do very much. Not really anything happened. Nothing really happened from there on out, and Arsenal go ahead and get the win. So 1-0 to us. Very briefly, I'll just say overall, the game was not great from us. I don't think we were very good, generally speaking, but I don't think we really needed to be very good. Without Odegaard, without Rice, we obviously knew that we were going to lack something both on the defensive end and on the attacking end. But generally speaking, I think we just managed to grit our teeth and get through a game where we knew Tottenham were probably going to have more of the ball, but that we just needed to be defensively compact and solid and kind of wait them out, because eventually they're going to, huff and puff and run out of steam. And that is basically exactly what happened. We took our chances, though, which is always great to see. Outside of the Martinelli chance, obviously, the Gabriel chance is really the only other big chance I can really think of for us. And we put it away. So, Gabriel continues to score, continues to be kind of a standout defender in our team. Got to put more respect on his name. People are trying to replace him in these combined 11s and stuff, trying to put Van de Ven or Romero in ahead of him. I think you really got to put some respect on Gabriel's name, both on the defensive and on the attacking end, because I will say he was better than Saliba in that game yesterday, in that game on the weekend. So put some respect on his name. But outside of that, I just think, it's 3-point collectors. Let's move on to the next game. It's exactly what we needed to do before, a tight couple of clashes against Atalanta and then against Man City. So I think it was exactly what we needed, but I'm not going to overdo it and say too much about the game. I think generally speaking, we showed more experience and showed that we were probably the team that's further ahead in their journey, further ahead in a lot of things. I think real questions need to probably be asked about Tottenham at this point. I think was it 7? What's it 7 losses in the last 11 games or whatever? And just imploding on the, in post-match conferences. Everything's going a bit nuts. Some real questions need to be asked, Tottenham fans. You really need to ask some questions of who you're buying, what kind of style you're playing, because over here we ain't having them problems, son. So, but anyway, what do you think of the game, mate? Did you manage to watch it? Did you enjoy it as a neutral?
Yeah, I managed to watch it. Managed to get home in time and just find a couple of hours to just relax and watch a game. It was kind of the main game of the weekend for me. I didn't really manage to catch the Southampton United game live, so this was the one that my schedule allowed me to watch live, and I was excited for it, man. I kind of expected it to go the way that it did, and I think it was. I agree with you and kind of disagree with you, because I feel like it was a cagey game. And I think that the atmosphere around North London derbies is always one where you feel excitement. You kind of don't know what to expect. But I will say this year, I'm not trying to do some Nostradamus thing. Like, I did kind of know what to expect. Like, I really expected you guys to come in, be solid, and defend from the front, and try and score a goal from a set piece, or maybe try and get something from a corner or a counter attack, and that would be the way that you guys were going to win or get result. And it kind of went that way. And I feel like this Martinelli stuff, that's so harsh. That wasn't really a gilt-edged chance. Like, he had a lot of running to do with the ball, and then if he scored from there, you would say that's a bloody good finish. So I feel like people just want to run agendas on Martinelli and be unfairly harsh on him. Like Trossard, number one, you said about Trossard, right? I get your point. Trossard would have never had that chance, because there's no way he's going to be able to run off the shoulder and get the space to have that shot. So it's a moot point. Like, he wouldn't have created that. That just wouldn't have existed for Trossard. So I feel like Martinelli had a good game, man. Him and Saka worked their nuts off defensively, which I think was which was their number one priority for this game. Arteta definitely said, "Let's fucking go, guys, and defend. Like, you need to defend more than attack." And I think you saw that from the wingers, and Saka in particular. Some of the track and back he was doing was top tier, man. And I know, wingers, you're praising wingers for defensive work, but I'm sorry, in big games like that, even back in the days, you needed some of your attacking players to work their socks off and go the extra mile, help out defensively. Otherwise, you're not going to win. Very rarely do I remember like big derbies or big top of the table clashes being decided because of, a team just completely outplays the other. Of course, it happens every now and again, but most of the time they are these kind of cagey games. And I expected this from you guys. And I think it's I've seen some Arsenal content creators kind of really praise it. And, I agree. If it was me and it was my team and I've gone through the kind of trajectory you guys have gone through, where, let's be real, I'm not trying to mock it, you guys were being rinsed for half a decade at least, maybe longer, for being kind of spineless and what was it, ever little boys, and all those kind of jokey type things. But they were rooted in the fact that a lot Arsenal was soft. Like after your really strong team and the Invincibles and stuff, Wenger bought a team full of really technically strong ballers, but not with any grit. And this Arsenal team is not that way. This Arsenal team is more throwback, like George Graham, early Wenger days, where your defense is hard as nails and your attack is very, very functional, and they've got substance. What we talked about last week, right? I know Saka. I'm not saying Saka's not and Martinelli are not, ballers. They are ballers, but they focus more on substance, which is why I think Arteta can say to them, "Come back and help out your fullbacks," and they do it because they know it's going to help the team rather than their stats. And so, yeah, man, I thought you guys did great, and I understand where you're coming from in terms of it doesn't matter how we win or how we get a result, we get a result, and I appreciate that, and I feel like your back 4 or 5, minus Ben White, who I think didn't have a great game, the other 4, amazing performances. Timber was top. Gabriel, I feel like I can't keep raving about him because people are going to say, you're an Arsenal fan, closet Arsenal fan. Gabriel's top, man. He's top 5, maybe top 3 defenders in the league, and people keep essing on him. They need to give him they need to get past the agendas, get past some of the early bozo moments he had, and just recognise his form from the last 3 years. The last 3 years, if he had a ponytail and he was Dutch, you'd be talking about him being generational and one of the best defenders in Premier League history and all this waffle. Like, that's the level he's reaching. I know we all Saliba praise Rolls Royce. I think Saliba recovered in this game. He had a dodgy start, right? Solanke, was kind of ragdolling him a bit in the first 20 minutes. But he came back and Saliba was really good for the rest of the game as well. But Gabriel didn't put a foot wrong the whole game. And it kind of like, it spread to the rest of his back 4 and his goalie. Raya was good as well. And I just feel like it was unbelievable performance, man. And yeah, Romero. But now we get up to the Tottenham part. Yeah. If I didn't have sore throat or some illness, I'd be going absolutely ham on them because absolutely bottle jobs. I never want to. And the thing about Romero was I actually think he was better in that second half before he conceded the goal. He was winning some tackles. He was kind of like he was snuffing things out for Tottenham. And I would have come on this pod if he didn't have that moment and say he did all right. This was one of Romero's better games, and then he goes and has that moment. And I listened to some Tottenham content creators talk about it. Quite a lot of their goals conceded this season so far have been because of him.
Have been from him. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Like nearly all of them have been from him. So I don't want to hear any of this Romero chat ever again. Like, he's a defender that can be good on his day, but he's not in these combos that they're trying to force them into. I'm sorry. He's a decent top 4 defender. He's no more than that. And World Cup winner, all of that stuff. Thank Messi. Thank your midfielders. Thank Alvarez. Thank those guys. Thank Emi Martinez for penalty shootout saves. That's where it's come from more than... I say that with Lissandro as well. That they can't get plaudits for that. So, yeah, for this game, Spurs were massively disappointing, and you guys just executed the plan to a T. And I feel like Arteta's got to get massive praise. Your back 5 got to get massive praise. Even the midfielders, man. Partey and Jorginho held their own. And I thought there was no chance they were going to be able to hold their own in that midfield. And they did well. And yeah, I mean, Havertz was okay.
Madison was missing, bro.
Yeah, Madison as well.
I'm not going to put it down to them either. Like, I'm not going to put it down to Partey and Jorginho locking them up. But I mean, coming out of that game, what I wanted to hear was Madison had been kept quiet the whole game. Because let's be honest, if Madison's not playing well, that Tottenham team doesn't really play well. I'll be honest with you. Like, attacking wise, they don't really create very much. Brennan Johnson, Timo Werner type of stuff. Like, Son is really the only, outside of Madison, really the only chance they've got. And he's not really all that creative, right? He's maybe going to create some stuff for himself and he'll be able to put away good finishes if he gets in good positions. But generally speaking, if Madison is not, if Madison's not creative, then they don't really have anything to do in that, in the attacking half. They've got obviously Porro and Udogie trying things, but without Madison firing, it kind of neutralizes a very big weapon they've got. And obviously Jorginho and Partey did a good job on that. I will say Trossard was not
It wasn't great.
I know
It
I
was
know he
okay.
was filling in. He was filling in, right? He was filling in that role. So I'm not going to go too ham on him, but he wasn't great. So like it definitely did make a big difference not having Rice and Odegaard in there. But
Mm.
had that been a Man City or a Liverpool, or even maybe even like a Villa, I think they could have done something with us, right? They could have got a couple of opportunities here and there. But just Tottenham, like I said, impotent, man. They haven't got anything about them, and like it was probably the most comfortable last 30 minutes of a match where we've been 1-0 up in a game where we're not having, the better of things. It's the most comfortable I've ever been in that situation, right? If this is even
Easy.
against Man United, Chelsea, whoever, I'm worried. I'm still worried that you might do something. But that Tottenham, like that's the biggest disrespect I can give to them is like we went 1-0 up and that was it. I knew that game was over and Tottenham had nothing about them. And I think the thing that you mentioned about Arsenal being soft underbelly, no backbone for like a decade essentially is exactly what Tottenham have right now. There's nothing about them, man. Like they haven't
They've
got any
always been like
grit.
that.
They've always been like that, but even more so with this whole Ange thing and like trying to get a bit more passion and all this other stuff into the game. They still don't have anyone in that team that I really fear is going to really do anything and pull them out of the mud. Kane would have been the one that I'd worry about more previously, right? Because there's a world class striker, he can do what he wants. But even with Son, man, and I'm not saying this is a disrespect to Son, but like he's getting a bit older now, and even him, I'm not too worried about him getting an opportunity. When we're 1-0 up, so it's probably the biggest disrespect I can give to Tottenham. But they don't have anything about them that makes me think that they're going to be able to come back and claw themselves out of a difficult situation.
This ties into I agree with you completely. This ties into literally what we were saying last week and the style over substance stuff. Madison was like that. He had some good touches. He was stud rolling the ball to galore. You would have got absolute payouts from all the bookies if you'd bet on 4 or 5 stud rolls from Madison because he was doing that all over the shop. But it was nothing at the end. And you're right, like the way this Tottenham team is set up, it's youthful and they could become a good team. But right now, they haven't got any creativity. Like I was watching Kulusevski and Madison get the ball, and they looked good on the eye, and they were cutting in, and they were they had nice touches, they were doing little nice shimmies and all this kind of stuff. But realistically, I didn't fear for you guys at all. I didn't fear that they were going to create something because you're right. I'm not even dissing Son. Son has always been someone who needs chances created for him. Very rarely has he done something for himself. Like, I mean, at least not in these latter years, past 30. Like, he's become a player who's an absolute gunman. And if you give him a chance, he'll score. But you need to give him chances. And it was poor, man. And I think you're right. Against a better team, and I think the key is against a team with a more dynamic midfield, you would have struggled more with Partey and Jorginho. But that Tottenham midfield was, I don't know what Andrew's smoking. Because Sarr didn't start, right?
He didn't even
I'm pretty
start.
sure I was
Sarr,
shocked.
Yeah,
I was like
sub,
the one midfielder that has dynamism and that will really test Partey and Jorginho. They didn't even put him on, and this is not because Bentancur said some racist shit about Asians, but he's got nothing about him, man. He's soft. He's absolutely soft, and you can't rely on him to do anything. So you needed Basuma, you needed Sarr in there, really, I think, for them to really give you guys problems. And the Basuma one was an injury, fair enough, but the Sarr one, that was Ange's fault. And he flopped that, man. Let's get on to the Timber thing, because I've seen some people chat about it. I was telling you about it, obviously, because you were in China watching the game, right? So you had different commentary. But like Jamie Redknapp and a bunch of people were going in and saying, and Paul Merson, to be fair, so it wasn't just a Tottenham bias thing, were saying that Timber should have been sent off or could have been sent off. What's your opinion? Do you think he could have, or do you think they're trying to create a narrative?
I think it's absolute bollocks. I don't think even the foul was a yellow card in the first place. I think that was a shocking decision. I think it's pretty clear that he put his foot on the ball in a kind of Cruyff turn-esque fashion, and he wasn't running into the challenge. Everyone wants to say it's like a 50-50 in that, but they were literally like both of them almost jogging into the challenge. It wasn't like they were both sprinting to the ball and sliding into each other. It was literally just kind of running into each other with very little momentum. Timber puts his foot on the ball. Podro tries to kick under it, and then obviously as a result his foot lands somewhere on Porro. But even then, I very much doubt it was anywhere near enough for Porro to go down and roll on the floor for 10 minutes, right? So I think that first of all was not a yellow card. So if you want to say the second one was a yellow card, then that's totally fine, right? But then I don't want to hear anything about him being sent off, because that first one itself was soft. If you want to give it even as a foul, fine, but that was not a yellow card, right? Based off of the position on the pitch it was in, it's not like Tottenham had some big chance to, to break from there. Timber had not had like 15 different fouls before that, and he wasn't, in my opinion, doing anything really truly dangerous. So I don't think it was a yellow card in the first place. So if you want to talk about the second yellow card, go ahead and talk about the second yellow card. Yes, you can probably argue if you grip someone up, even if they do run at you, it could be a yellow card, right? It's just like in primary school when somebody used to throw something at me and I've dashed something back. I knew I was going to get shouted at as well, right? And I'd argue I'd even get shouted at more for retaliating because I'm supposed to be rise above it and all this other box. So fair enough, Timber deserves a yellow card for that second action. But the first one itself, I doubt even was a foul, let alone a yellow card. So I don't really want to hear it. Add on to that all of the other stuff that was going on previously, like last week with Declan Rice getting sent off. I don't want to hear anything from anyone about fairness and what should have been a red card, a yellow card. Can you imagine in a North London derby, that soft of a challenge and that soft of an action being used to give a red card? Like, it's disgusting. And I understand, Paul Merson wants to say it, and I don't really get where he's coming from, because a lot of other stuff I've heard him say is kind of like throwback to old school days where he wants people to double foot each other and get away with it kind of stuff. And now he wants to use that. I don't really get where that comes from. Jamie Redknapp, very clearly a soft individual, and he's a biased Tottenham fan, right? So I'm fine with Jamie Redknapp saying, he can say that all he wants. If you asked his dad, I guarantee Harry Redknapp would say, "Fuck off, that's not a yellow card." So out of the two of them Redknapps, I know which one I prefer. So I don't really even want to talk about that. I just don't think it was a sending off. I don't think it was a yellow card to begin with. And if Vicario, if he double footed him and Vicario came up to him, then fine, I'd say, yeah, Vicario, you got to back your boy. But Porro's dropping on the floor. If Vicario goes back and watches that replay, he's going to feel ashamed of himself, because that was not something to be jumping up to someone about, right? Even in a North London derby, that was not the challenge to be getting onto people about, right? So generally, from that opinion, I completely disagree with it. Being a sending off. If you want to give a yellow for the second action, fine, but the first one wasn't. So I don't know where you stand on it, but that's kind of where I'm at now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think it was a red. Definitely not red. I get why they give a yellow. But I feel like I kind of agree with you. That's probably quite harsh as well. And overall, yellow is probably fair considering all of the actions that happened afterwards. On the Vicario thing, I think you might be a bit harsh, because I don't think, obviously he hasn't seen the replay, right? And he's just seen Porro rolling around, and he's assuming that it's probably there's been more contact. So I get it. But he's just ramping anyway. He wasn't about anything. As soon as Timber grips him up, he backed off.
But that's what I mean. If you're Emi Martinez and you're actually about that life, then go ahead and do it. But Vicario, mate, you can't even come out and push people out of the way to get across. What do you think you're going to do to Timber? Timber's like 2 feet smaller than you, and he grips you up like you were a child. So Vicario, leave it to Romero or Van der Ven. You ain't about it, all right? You don't see David Raya coming out and gripsing people, because he knows he's not about it, and Gabriel and Saliba will do that job for him. So Vicario,
Ben White,
I get it. You're a tall guy, but you're not about that life, right? Go to the
I
gym,
feel
put some muscle on, learn to catch a cross, and then you can start chatting to people.
I feel like Gary Neville was on him the whole game, by the way, on our comms. He was absolutely ripping him to shreds. But part of the things he was saying, I kind of agree. Like, Vicario looked really nervous, and his whole demeanor was he was very fidgety. And it gave off a vibe of him being very nervous. So I feel like that was just in keeping with that behaviour. So I'm not really onto him. He needs to work on his game, because he was a weakness that you guys targeted. But in terms of this incident, I don't think it should have been a red card. I think Redknapp and Merson are just... I don't even blame them so much. I just feel like the rules and the way things are being officiated has pushed people to... They're now looking for or any kind of thing... to try and call for red cards and offsides and all kinds of stuff like that, and it's not that hard these days, right? Because of the ways that the games are being officiated and the way the laws are set up. I think you can have an incident, 1 or 2 incidents every game that you could try and debate in this way. I will say some of the Curtis Jones comparisons I've heard are absolutely ludicrous.
Stinks to the high heavens, man.
I literally, for some of these people posting about it, I watched the video that they share of the Curtis Jones incident, and I go, am I losing my mind? Like all right, sure, it's slightly similar because the person's studs on the ball, but in terms of the contact with the player, they're completely chalk and cheese. Like Curtis Jones absolutely clamps my man. And with your one, Timber literally like nicks him with the side of his boot. He doesn't actually hit him with the studs or anything. So it's like completely different case. And it's just people coming out crying, getting the violins out, saying that Arsenal get special treatment compared to them, or Liverpool get worse treatment compared to other people. But it's a joke thing. He deserved to get sent off in that game. Curtis Jones, I'm talking about, and this Timber one was a stretch. I don't even think we should talk about it more than that, to be honest. I feel like that's what it is.
No, I'm done with that. Yeah.
Let's talk about Ferdinand calling Arteta Pulis then, with his tactics.
Yeah.
Rio's been moving brazy. I swear to God, he's been on
He's getting progressively worse, man. I don't know what's going on with him, right? Like I saw that picture of him at Burberry yesterday, getting his guns out and that, man. You need to settle yourself down, all right? Get off the TRT or whatever testosterone replacement therapy that you're doing to try and do all the stuff that you're doing, and just settle down, man. Like you're past your career. Stop doing too much. You know what I mean? Like I understand where he's coming from, right? And I know that he's also trying to like jab at us, because I think it's very clear to this point, right, that Man United players, especially the ones that were successful under Fergie, enjoyed it more when we were a bit of a joke, right? Because it was funny, and they were kind of they had pity on us, right? Because they were like, "Oh, you lot are crap. Even if we're crap, we'll allow you." The fact that we've been challenging, I know we still haven't done anything really, especially if you're going to talk to a person like Rio Ferdinand about trophies and stuff like that. We haven't done anything in that regard, but it's definitely that is the point to me. Is like he doesn't need to worry about us. I don't know why he's trying to like get jabs at us and try and rile our fans up, because the Man United fans and Man United players will be the first ones to tell you, you need to do something before you start chatting to any of us, even if we are in down periods, and we haven't done anything yet. So the fact that Rio Ferdinand has to come out and try and make fun of us or try and rile our fans up kind of shows to me like he probably sees us as more of a threat than he really should, right? If we were winning trebles or whatever else, fine. But like, where's that energy for Man City? You're not saying anything to them, right? Even Liverpool, you're barely saying anything to them either. So it just, to me, is like kind of cheap. And to this point, like I'm not really listening to anything that he really says anymore, because I know for the most part he's just trying to jab at us, right? Like I rarely hear him talk about Chelsea, right? I rarely hear him talk about a lot of other clubs that are in the mud. It's mainly the Arsenal that he wants to talk about, and I know that that's kind of the dynamic with him and Joel Bayer, right? Like that's the Man United fan and the Arsenal fan, so he has more of a target to talk about. But I just feel like he's doing too much, and he just needs to calm down, because I'm sure he was the first one during our down periods where we were soft to say, you lot need to learn how to defend. And as a centre-back himself, that was paired alongside of a Vidic type of defender who was clamping people, and let's be honest, was a real throwback type defender. It's weird for him to come out and try and like put people down, because the best thing about Pulis was the defense. Like you can go and say what you want about his style, but the only good thing about it was that he was a good defensive unit of absolute brick houses that would stop you from playing the football that you wanted to play. So I don't really get where it's coming from.
Here's the thing, right? The premise of what he's saying, I agree with. The exaggeration that he's used, he's obviously
the part
doing
where he's trying to rile people up.
Yeah, he's putting more, too much dip on the chip. Like he's going way further. Like he could have just compared Arteta to Mourinho.
Yeah,
and everyone would go, oh, great. Okay, not the best style of play, but he wins, and he's doing it to win. And essentially, that's what Arteta did. Going Tony Pulis is a bit. It's not even a bit. It's low, and he's obviously doing it for banter, and he's trying to rile up the Arsenal fans, like you say, because Pulis won nada, and you're not fighting relegation,
Exactly.
and you haven't got Rory Delap throwing in bloody long throws and stuff like that. So, but Rio is what he is, and he's like everyone else in this space, bro. And this is the thing: we hold him to a different standard because he's an ex-pro and because he's one of the best Premier League defenders of all time. But at the end of the day, he's a content creator like everyone else, and he's trying to create content, and he's trying to get headlines and do whatever he's doing, and so he goes for the Pulis shout. But yeah, the only thing I will say, and this is not aimed at Arsenal fans, is this is aimed at everyone else, kind of critiquing or praising Arsenal for this style of play and performance. Just hold the same energy when other people do it as well. That's all I'm saying, right? Hold the same energy when, if at some point Maresca does it, or at some point Ten Hag does it, or some point Slot does it, or some point Ange does it. The teams that are not at the top, right? The ones that are trying to find a way into Champions League, or maybe they're going through some drama, right? Because I know if Ten Hag done this, he wouldn't get any praise. Certainly, it would all just be. It wouldn't be the Pulis shout because that's an exaggeration, but he would still be getting lots of skepticism for playing this way. So, and I think that's not really fair. But I don't think that's aimed at Arsenal fans. That's aimed at everyone around it. Let's just understand that sometimes you've got to play that way, right? Because I think often the thing that's thrown at Ten Hag and thrown at other Mourinho before, and who else is some other managers, Conte and stuff like this, was this style is archaic and all this stuff, and there was very little credit given when they would, S-house their way to a win and play in different ways. And I'm not saying it about you, because you've always said you wanted Arsenal to have a variety of different styles to play because you're going to need it. And I agree, you're going to need it. But I think sometimes when people talk about, and we do it all as our own fans, but when we talk about our own manager, we kind of only look at the good stuff and they go, oh, Arteta's got this beautiful style and it's very Pep-like. Now, man, Arteta's actually mad varied. And in the first 18 months to 24 months, you played like that more than you played free-flowing football. And so now we're looking back on things and we're going, Arteta deserved more time because we're thinking about the recent block of 18 months to 24 months when he's played free-flowing football. But, he's able to S-house it with the best of them. And I think that's Rio's overarching point. He's just gone too far with the Pulis thing. But it's just the point that, some managers, although Arteta's not the one for this, are poster boys for the media, and people get given, they get given a blight for everything. Arteta's not. So I'm actually glad that he's getting praise for this. He should get praise for it because you know what? That is some victory. And he did it without two of his 3 or 4 best players. So let's not go Pulis, but let's give him some Conte and Mourinho praise on that style of play, because that's the style of champions. All right, you haven't got there yet, but if you win the league at the end of the year and you've played like this 3 or 4 times away at your biggest rivals and got results, you will be able to point at those games and say that's where you won it.
But this is the exact point I made. No, I know we need to move on to the Man United segment, but I just want to say this, right? Like, as I've said before, and as you just pointed out, I've said we need to have various different styles depending on who we come up against, right? Not everybody plays the same way of football, despite the fact that Pep has basically ruined football by making everyone try to play out from the back, high possession type of football, right? But not everyone plays in that way. Sometimes we need to be able to dominate the ball. Sometimes we need to be able to sit off and let somebody else dominate the ball. And I think that is the only way that you can really be a successful team in not just in the Premier League, but in Europe as well, right? Like when you come up against Real Madrid, or if you come up against Man City, they're two very different styles of play. And, even Pep has to adapt depending on who he plays, right? Like the best managers have to adapt. Not everybody can just enforce their style of play on everyone. And I agree with you. I don't think Ten Hag would have got the same credit for the same kind of result. But I will say that any of these Pulis shouts that you want to go and give, I guarantee you next game we'll play different. Or not next game, because it's against Man City and we probably will have to play similar.
I think next game you'll play the same.
In other games we play very differently. Like against Atalanta, you think we're going to play the same way as we played against Tottenham? I doubt it. I think we're going to play with a little bit more style to it, depending on who we set out in the starting 11. But generally speaking, you can't go and say, "Oh, that's how Arsenal play," as if we play like the performance against Tottenham is the performances that we put in every single week. Like, you are one of the first people to say that Arsenal back end of last season, just before like everything went balls up, were by far the best looking team, right? We played the best football. We were the most attractive, not only defensive, but we also could play really nice going forward, right? And then we showed against the Man City. I know obviously people diss that performance as well. And, you've got to go and beat your biggest rivals if you really want to win the league and all that bollocks. But prior to that, we had a really poor record against all big four teams. So for me to go and see that we're able to go and defensively be solid against one of the best teams ever, I'm happy to see it. So like, that's my biggest point, is if everybody wants to say that we're some Jose Mourinho house football, just go back and watch some of the performances that we put in earlier this season, last season, whenever else for the last basically 24 months. Go and have a look at what we were doing, because we didn't play like this all the time. So before anyone tries to pigeonhole and say, "Oh, Arteta is such a shit house," it's just so disingenuous. And the fact that you don't, I mean, obviously you see what you're doing, but the fact that you can't recognize that Arteta obviously has various different styles of football, some of them attractive and some of them not so attractive, is just, it cheapens the whole argument, and it shows that there's so much bias in whatever you're saying. Because, I mean, is that not the biggest criticism that we have of Ange and even sometimes Klopp, right? That they couldn't change their style of football. They had heavy metal football, high line for life. It looks great, but in the games like this, it don't do anything. And everyone's the first point, we're all the first to point out Ange needs to be able to change it up, or Klopp couldn't change it up at the right moments, or whatever else to get across the line against Man City. So we're going to go and do, when Arteta actually shows that he can switch it up, we're going to go and crucify him for it and say that he's Tony Pulis. Like, it's just, you can't win. Like, it doesn't matter what you do. No one's ever going to be happy, because it's very clear we're all biased and love our teams, and we don't want anyone else to do well. Just the way.
No, just give you guys props, man, and we should wrap up there on Arsenal.
Yeah,
it was a fantastic win, and the style of play does not matter, because, like you said, that's not indicative of how you guys play week in, week out. It was horses for courses, and you won the race. So big up Arsenal, man, and big up your defense, big up Gabriel, big up your set piece coach, and shame on Tottenham, because they bottled it, they flopped it, man. And if you can't get up for one of your biggest games at home, boy, long season. And I think they are going to have a long season.
It's going to be a long season.
It's going to be a long season.
The Ange downfall comes now. But anyway, let's get on to the Man United Southampton game. Obviously, coming into this game, a lot of pressure on Ten Hag, right? So it was a big game for him, and we kind of discussed it on the last pod, what might happen or what could happen depending on the next kind of string of results. You go there, you get a 3-0 win. I'm going to say that really that scoreline, based off of the first 30 minutes, flatters, but off the last 60 minutes is about where it should have been. First 30 minutes,
we should have had more goals. To be honest,
exactly right.
The second half, it could have been 5-6-0. We battered.
Exactly. So, generally speaking, I think the result was fair. I do think it would have been a very different game had Southampton gone and scored that penalty, which Cameron Archer obviously missed. Could have been a different game really all round for Man United and for Ten Hag, and we would be having a very different conversation. But obviously, Dibbling, great performance, wins a penalty, causing Dalot real problems in that first 30 minutes. I don't think you've got any arguments with it being a pen, do you?
Nah, I mean, Dalot drives me nuts, man. But I'll talk about him in a minute. But I think that was a pen. And Dibbling was good, man. Don't know where the hell he came from, but boy, he looks decent. Decent player. He looks decent, man.
Vicar of Dibbling out here, man's going nuts. But so Cameron Archer gets the penalty, steps up, absolutely bottles it. One of the worst pens again I've seen. Poor. It just looks like no one can take a penalty these days. Good save from Onana, obviously, just what you'd expect from him. That's what he needs to be doing with penalties, especially if he's going to have the smoke that he's coming for people with the whole point in that things and doing all this other stuff, right? But then obviously after the momentum completely shifts to Man United. De Ligt, great header off of Bruno Cross. That's 1-0. Rashford, a bit of a dribbler. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't really see it coming, but he manages to get it into the bottom right-hand corner. great finish from Rashford. It's almost become his marquee goal, not in the fact that it was a bit of a dribbler, but that like low across the goalkeeper shot after cutting in is almost his MO at this point, right? Like his trademark, because he did that against us. Obviously, a much better goal because he megged people and then slapped it bottom corner. But that is kind of becoming his thing now, and it was a great finish from him. And he gets on the score sheet after like not scoring in like 6 months, which is mental to think of.
It's been a while, yeah.
Man definitely saw his EAFC score of 81, and he's going to be on a rampage from now on. And then second half, you just continue same fashion. Xerxes, Rashford, Garnacho, all doing really, really well. Stevens gets sent off. I think it was a soft red card, generally speaking, but honestly, I'm not going to complain about it too much because I don't think it really affected the outcome of the game all that much. I think they were still going to lose. And, I give credit to Stevens because actually he was one of the only defenders in that team or the only players in that team that was really trying to get stuck into Man United and maybe cause them some problems. What do you think? Do you agree it's a red card? What's your standpoint on it?
It's a hard one, man, because when I first, obviously, I wasn't watching the game live, and I saw you guys' reaction in the group chat and stuff, and then I watched it back, and I don't know, man. That might be a modern red because I think he doesn't make a lot of contact, but I think
it's a transition of the game that Garnacho is gonna, about to go and do.
But it's also the area that he tries to make contact, because if he does make contact on the knee, you could F him badly. Like that's the thing, and I think he makes a little bit of contact on the knee, and so that they've justified it being a dangerous one. Like if he missed him altogether, he probably would have got a yellow, and that's the fine margins. But I feel like he doesn't make full contact, but he catches him in the knee, and I think that's the reason why. And it's more about the intent, because let's be real, he was trying to clamp him, right? Like that was.
Yeah, no, I think it's pretty clear that he was. There was a lot of momentum, and I think this is probably the biggest thing, right? Because when you're out of control, you're more likely to get a red card. Even if I think you get the ball, you can still get red carded because you're out of control, even though they don't realize that people are sprinting for at least half of this game, or if not more. So it's a really weird rule that they've got now where you can't run fast and try to tackle someone, because then it's basically given as dangerous play or out of control, this, that, and the other. But I can kind of see, modern day football, that is what a red kind of looks like these days, which is really sad to say. And I'm going to sound like Turkish here, but game's gone.
Game's gone.
Obviously, you guys continue. You end up scoring your third goal in injury time, and a good, comfortable win against what I think is going to be a relegated Southampton team by the end of it. Do you want to talk about any of the players? Who do you think were the better players? I'm sure you've got something to say about maybe De Ligt, but anyone else you want to call out for good performances?
Yeah, I think it was mainly the back. It was the centre-back pairing and Onana that came out of that game with any kind of major credit. Probably De Ligt at the top of that, obviously, with his goal as well. But generally, all-round play, he looked really comfy. And him and Martinez both had a good game. Martinez was slyly quite good as well in this game as well. He was, passing through the lines, and he was making a lot of blocks as well, especially in that opening 30 minutes when we were a bit shaky. De Ligt and Martinez and Onana were kind of keeping us in the game. And Mazraoui was decent as well, so I don't want to exclude him, but Mazraoui's just turned into one of these guys, touch wood, so far. He's just been like a 7 out of 10 every week, you know what I mean? He's not been sensational, but he's not been poor in any way. And so I'm really enjoying that at right back. I think he's been good. And I think Dalot is the opposite, because he got rinsed for that first half an hour. And fair enough, these youngsters, you can't do much prep on them, right? You don't really know how they're going to play. So there's always a chance you can get done a few times. But he was getting absolutely run back. Like, they just decided Dallow's the one, and they went for him non-stop. And Dibbling was cutting in. He had a shot as well before the penalty that, Onana makes a good save from as well. And he was just terrorising him. And Dalot has these games every now and again. I actually feel like his versatility is hurting him, because he's a right back. I'm going to be honest with you. He's a right back. And him at left back, he's decent, but he can get rinsed. And there's games where it can work. for example, against Saka or something like that, I feel like Dallow's had his best games because that stylistically it makes sense. But
Yeah, right foot to left foot, it makes sense.
yeah, but this kid also had the same setup. This Diblin, he was also left foot cutting in, but Dallow was just getting absolutely killed. And I think the difference was, and this is not a slight at Saka or some wingers that are this way, but Saka a lot of the time cuts in, and this Diblin guy was going down the outside a lot. And I think Dallow didn't see it coming and didn't kind of adapt to what he was seeing, because Dibbling did it a few times, and you go, okay, so now I have to be respectful of maybe he's going to run down the line. And Dallow just still got sold every time with the cut in and then run out the outside, and that's where the penalty comes. So yeah, I would say the standout performances were all in our defence, minus Dallow. I think he had a poor game for the first half an hour, and then he was just average after that. But yeah, Rashi, I think he was decent. He looked more like himself. He had a couple of pot shots, and he was, trying things again, which is good. I think Xerxes also overall had a good game. I mean, he needs to start tucking away some of the chances he's getting, but his overall play was good. Like, he really linked things in quite nicely, and I feel like he played really well. So yeah, man, I just feel like first half an hour, very, very worrying. But second, or the rest of the 60 minutes, very quietly impressed. Because, like I said, I feel like it could have been 5 or 6-0.
Do you think it was like the momentum issue of just like, all right, you got a bit of confidence off of the save penalty and that kind of turns you round? Or like, was there a tactical change you saw happen? Like, how do you go from being absolutely woeful to being pretty good?
Well, I think in possession of the ball, Ten Hag started inverting the fullbacks, both Mazraoui and Dalot, and brought us into the midfield, and we got onto the ball a bit more. Which didn't automatically stop the problems going the other way, but it just meant when we did have the ball, we had a bit more control, and then that allowed us to keep it for a bit longer once that kind of change happened. So I do give Ten Hag credit tactically. I do think he tweaked things after half an hour, but at the same time, I just feel like there's a big part of it that was just down to like the natural momentum swing of a game. So Nana makes the save, and then pretty much almost immediately, De Ligt scores. And the game goes, and I think it deflates Southampton. But I'll be real, I don't know how much it would have. I still think we could have beaten them even if they did score that goal, because let's be honest, they're poor, man. They're a poor team. Southampton are a poor team, and I mean, it would have given them a better chance to get a draw or a win, obviously, if they went 1-0 up. And who knows, maybe they could have got more momentum from it. But I still felt like
the style that they played as well. They could have tried. I doubt this, because they look very much like a Burnley of last year, where it don't really matter what's going on. They're going to try and play this style of football.
I don't think it would have.
They would have still kept in my opinion, a smarter promoted team grabs a goal and shithouses it until the end of the match.
Yeah, no, agreed.
But yeah, I agree with you. I think Southampton probably wouldn't have done that, and it would have been to their detriment. But obviously, this is all hypotheticals, because Cameron Archer had an absolute stinker of a penalty. So I do think you were probably going to win it regardless, right?
Yeah, no, I just think stylistically it was not a good match for them. I'll be real. And Russell,
I don't know how many stylistically good matches they've got.
Yeah, I agree with you. They're going to be struggling most weeks if they keep playing this way. And everyone's forecasting already with the Burnley comparisons. But yeah, I feel like they've got to show a bit more nous, be a bit. They're too naive right now to keep playing that way with the players that they've got. But yeah, no, overall I'm happy with the win, man. And I'm gonna just we're gonna have games most weeks where I feel like we have a very shaky period. We tend to be slow starters, so I would imagine most first halves are going to be difficult for us, especially away from home. But no, I don't even think we need to spend too much more time on this. I feel like the first half was.
I'm good with it. I don't really enjoy talking about Southampton at all, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah, no. The thing I will just emphasise though, that centre back pairing is going to be vital. If they keep playing, and Ten Hag has kind of hung his hat on this when he kept talking about all of the different centre back pairings we had last season, talking about the injury point and everything like that. If he has De Ligt and Martinez together for a run of games, his excuse goes away. And fair do, Southampton are right? No offense to Southampton fans, but there's going to be much bigger tests than this. So we're going to need to see De Ligt and Martinez come out of this with They need to play like this against some of the better teams, and then I'll believe the hype. But it was a good start,
Yeah.
man, and happy to get 3 points on the board.
100%. So let's move on to Man United Barnsley in the Carabao. Obviously, your favourite trophy at this point in time. An absolute battering. I don't think I need to really go through because I'll spend 25 minutes just talking about the various different goals you scored against them. But you absolutely slapped them. Get the 7-Up cans out. It's your turn, baby.
We're back.
Rashford, yeah, Rashford getting properly back on the score sheet now. Anthony got his little charity penalty, which
Is that
Arteta's a trendsetter out here. Yeah, he's Arteta is a real trendsetter out here, inventing the charity penalty. Garnacho obviously really good. Ericsson got his cheeky little brace at the end as well, which is it's nice to see him get back on the score sheet. As I said, I think he's your second best centre midfielder. But overall, what did you make of it? Did you watch it? How much stock are you putting into this absolute pumping that you gave Barnsley?
So it's a weird one. I didn't watch it live. I was working, but I watched extended highlights afterwards, which I probably shouldn't have bothered with. I should have just watched the normal highlights because, we absolutely battered them. The only thing I will say is Barnsley went for it as well. And so there's a bit of a trend in both of these two games that we've won. The aggregate score is 10-0, but it's against teams that have both gone for it. So we're not going to face those teams every week. It's actually going to be very rare that we face teams that go for it and open up. And Barnsley just went for it. They were like, what the hell? They didn't really have like a staunch game plan or anything like that. So they just went for it. And it opened up and Rashford scored. Both of his finishes were both quite nice. One left foot, one right foot. Got a Nacho as well. Gets back on the score sheet again. Ericsson's double was really nice as well. Nice link-up play with Bruno. And then, Antony did create the goal, to be fair. He did get fouled, but, he did get the pity penalty afterwards. And to be fair, he tucked it away nicely as well. So, no major takeaways other than I just feel like this is a good confidence builder. Got a really tough game, which we're going to talk about in a bit, the weekend. Beating Barnsley comfortably, not having a scare, being able to rest players, let people get some minutes. Let me guess. The postman's here. So it was good overall for us to get the win and the convincing win because it was done by half time, wasn't it? So it was nice. The other positive was Ugarte got a good chunk of minutes. Him and Casemiro looked really handy in midfield. It was interesting because we kind of put Ugarte in the defensive role and let Casemiro roam, and Casemiro looked all right, man. So maybe that's going to be the kind of one of the potential midfield pairings we could see in future games, and give Casemiro less defensive duties and let him kind of drive with the ball in the offensive third. And he looked decent. You know what, though? I will say I'm going to give Ericsson some props because man's been in the wilderness. We haven't seen him for too many times in this last 18 months. And he's still got quality on the ball, man. And he's still one of our midfielders that's able to see passes from deep and play good balls in through break the lines. And I remember back to kind of early Ten Hag reign, Christian Eriksen was key to some big wins that we had against you guys at home. He came up with 2 assists, I think, for Rashford against Liverpool at home. In a lot of the big games, Christian Eriksen was a guy that we really relied on. I don't think he's finished yet. So I do think he can contribute, man. And I don't think it's a wildest shout for him to get minutes at the moment. And yeah, man, overall very happy with the win. Happy to get through to the next round. And I just hope we can just keep this momentum going and get a big victory in our next game, because the fixtures will get harder again. We've got Tottenham at home, I think, in a few weeks' time, and some other Aston Villa away, etc. So the fixtures are going to get hard. So we really need to build up some momentum, keep people fit, and you know what? Keep scoring. Because I think on last week's pod, I mentioned, and probably for a couple of weeks now, I've been worried, about our attack and the potency and clinical nature of our attack, and worried about where the goals are going to come from. And boom, we slapped 10 goals on 2 teams' head. I know they're rubbish, but still good, man. So hopefully we can keep it going. But yeah, I'm also happy about who scored. Rashford, Garnacho. I'm happy. I want them to get some confidence back going into these big games. So yeah, I'm not going to say Rashford purple patch incoming, but it's good to see him smiling, good to see him scoring. Overall, I think he's worked his nads off in these last couple of games as well. Defensively, he's been better. So, yeah, man, you got to give him praise when they deserve it. So, happy days, 7-0, roll on Yeovil Town or whoever we're going to get in the fourth round. Because we get nice draws.
You finally found your level, lads. Get them in League Two and you'll absolutely bump everyone. But last question, though, I want to ask you, what does this do for Ten Hag? Is this just a bit of a pressure release for give him a couple more months of people getting off his back a little bit, or is this just going to be more recipe for him to chat absolute waffle when he gets beaten in future games during post-match interviews? Like, how do you see these two results really shaping up for Ten Hag, and has anything changed, or is it similar kind of sentiment as before?
Let's use our common sense. It's obviously the latter. Like, it's going to be the latter until he loses his job or until something clicks and we suddenly get a long run of good results, which I can't really see at the moment, right? And I'm not trying to be negative or anything like that, but we kind of but we mentioned kind of media agendas and stuff like that. He's not one of the favourites, man. So when we lose or when we have a poor result, they're going to be onto him. And when we win, even though it's Barnsley, even though it's Southampton, he's not going to get his praise. So it is what it is, man. I think a lot of United fans, whether you're Ten Hag in or Ten Hag out, you've come to that understanding, and you kind of accept it, and you just wait for the performances to improve and wait for the results to improve, and you just hope that's what comes. So that's where we are, man. I'm sure he'll waffle in the next press conference if we lose to Crystal Palace or we drop points against Tottenham or Aston Villa. That's kind of who he is at this point, right? And what the media has created from him. With how things have gone. So let's just hope things improve. But yeah, I'm pretty sure, bro, we're gonna have a running Ten Hag watch on this pod for the rest of the season until or if he loses his job. I think that's the only way it stops. Unless we have a crazy Arteta style remontada, because let's not act like that kind of wasn't the case a bit with Arsenal fans when things were rough. It was kind of that case as well. But he's managed to turn it around. But I think it's unlikely that Ten Hag will be able to do it. I'll be honest. I don't know if he's got the cojones to do it and the level of relationship with the players as well. Because I think that's something that people always forget when they talk about these Arteta comparisons. Arteta had the dressing room, bro. I think we all knew that. Like the players rated him and they liked him. You never heard murmurings apart from your Aubameyangs and your Ozils. You never heard murmurings. So.
But I think those were the ones that he specifically was trying to get rid of as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think you don't include them, but you don't include them because those are the ones he exiled. But the rest of them said nothing. You didn't hear any rumblings of anything, right? Even players that weren't playing, you didn't hear anything. With Man United and Ten Hag, it's not only the ones that he exiles that are going on to Piers Morgan. It's the other ones that are the ones that are there that are also causing trouble. So let's see. But I'm going to stay positive, and the results are good, but I think let's be realistic as well. It's going to be Ten Hag watch probably for the rest of the season, and I've accepted it.
And I think that's probably to the benefit of our viewers because it's hilarious. But at least he's now earned the 10 in Ten Hag. He's scored 10 goals in 2 games. Go on, son.
He got his chain back.
Yeah, there we go. All right, let's get on to previews, right? So this is Wednesday, so Arsenal are playing Atalanta today. I'm not sure if this will come out today, so we may need to try.
Tomorrow, you're playing on Thursday.
Oh, tomorrow, sorry.
On Thursday, bro.
Yeah, so we'll try and get it out, obviously, before the game tomorrow. But we've got, Arsenal, as you said, have got a couple of very difficult fixtures. Atalanta on Thursday, and then Man City on the Sunday, I believe. And then Man United have got Crystal Palace away. Are you playing on Saturday or Sunday? Saturday, right?
I think we're on Saturday. Yeah. I think
so. So you'll be coming up against Crystal Palace, who I'm going to be honest with you, haven't looked quite as good as they were looking back end of last season. So we'll start on the Man United one. We'll go for the Man United result fixture first, and then predictions. So Crystal Palace at home against Man United. How do you think the game's going to go, and what do you think the score will be?
Yeah, so I agree with you, man. Palace have been a bit they've been a bit of a yo-yo team so far this season. They've like bounced between looking pretty good in some games, like Chelsea away.
Yeah.
They were decent as they wrapped one in, absolute baller. And then other games like Leicester where they just snuck a draw, to be honest. And if VAR wasn't broken, I think they could have lost that game because that Mateta goal was offside, bro. I don't care what anyone will say. He was offside by a mile. I don't know how they're drawing them lines. It's absolute. And if they are drawing them differently, they need to show us the direct line of thing, right? They can't show us the slanted version where it looks like he's miles offside. So they got lucky with that one, and they've got lucky in a few other games. So Palace aren't firing, and I feel like they're finding their feet with all the changes in their team. Because don't get me wrong, Glasner's really reshuffled that pack of that squad. There's a lot of new players in there.
No Anderson, getting rid of Anderson to Fulham, losing Elise. It's just some weird. Obviously, the Elise one is probably inevitable, but the Anderson one really just baffling. No, I have no idea why that happened. Yeah,
baffling. Because Anderson was, I've always been on the Anderson train from early. He's one of the best defenders outside the top six, right? All round, defensively, on the ball, pingers. He's a really good defender. And Fulham did some good signings, man. I'm not gonna lie. Emil Smith-Rowe's been cooking as well. But yeah, exactly. And but they're I just Crystal Palace are a hard team to judge at the moment because if you go heritage, you'd say bloody hell, this is not good. Christian Bull and all that kind of stuff, and even last season they battered us 4-0 and all that. They're a really good team at home. But this season, it just doesn't look like they found their feet. But it could be typical. They could look this way and then play Man United and suddenly find their feet and give us a slapping. So I don't know. I think it will be close, though. I feel like I couldn't have written a storyline better for Man United to go into this game off the back of 10 goals with no reply, 2 wins, confidence up, Crystal Palace coming into it, in the opposite way, in the opposite manner. But yeah, late kickoff on a Friday, 5:30. On Saturday, sorry, 5:30 on a Saturday. The late game. It's also set up for a bit of a giant killing or an upset. So I really think it could go either way.
They beat you home and away last season.
Yeah, they always do pretty well against us at Old Trafford as well. So I mean that one, it's been a tricky fixture.
Get your chain back, man. Ten Hag's got to get his chain back again.
Although I will say, like at Selhurst Park, I think the season before we got a draw, and Elise scored a late goal. We should have won that, and the season before I think we won that. So we've had some success at Selhurst Park. We've actually had more success there than at Old Trafford against them. So that's the reason why it's so difficult to predict. And I'm rambling now, so I'm gonna just go for it. I'm gonna say 2-1 Man United. But yeah, at this point, nearly every single prediction I can almost always see the likelihood of us losing a game as well. But I'm gonna say we're gonna get the win, but I can't say that we'll get a clean sheet. I wish we could S-House a 1-0 or a 2-0 or something like that. But I don't think we'll be able to keep Crystal Palace out with Mateta firing. They've still got some ballers there, man. And even Kamada came on in that Leicester game.
Kamada looks good as well.
So yeah, I'm going to say 2-1 Man United.
Scoring as well. Bloody hell. 2-1 Man United, all right.
Yeah.
He scored yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Against QPR in the Carabao, yeah. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it's a really hard game to call. And I think if you look at the bookies, they've got it the same. It's basically almost the same odds on either team winning. So I'm still going to go for a Man United win. I just think I think coming into the game, Crystal Palace just look like they're a very different team, I guess, than they were last year in terms of who they're relying on, who they're playing, and I think that kind of not as unsettled them, but I think it's going to take them still a little bit of time to really find their groove. I think obviously Glasner's shown that he can get wins and he's a good coach, but I just think maybe some of the changes that they've made in the transfer window have kind of just set them back a little bit in terms of maybe everyone's knowledge of how to play together and how to play the system properly and tactics and so on. So I do think he's still going to have a rough few weeks, probably a rough couple of months really, to get the team back to how they're supposed to be playing. And I got to remind everyone that they did lose to Brentford and West Ham, who really are going to be the two teams that they're going to be kind of in the same area of the table as, or they would have probably expected to be in the same area of the table as. So really important losses for them. and I actually do think they could end up underperforming where a lot of people probably have them this season. So yeah, I'm gonna go for a 3-1 Man United win.
God, you're brave.
Yeah. It'll probably end up being like a 0-0 or something stupid, but I'm gonna go for a 3-1 Man United win. But all right, let's get on to Arsenal then. We've got Atalanta, so we'll go for that one first on Thursday. Obviously, it's away. Atalanta, real good team. Was it Lookman? That was absolutely on fire in the Europa League final. They obviously were good enough to beat Liverpool last season.
Say it louder.
Nottingham Forest, for that matter, as well, are now good enough to beat.
Hey.
But yeah, I think it's a hard one to call, but I do think we will win this game. I don't think we're going to put out like a full strength 11. I think you will see a couple of changes. I even have a feeling that someone like a Nwaneri or one of our young players might get on the pitch either starting or a lot earlier than you'd usually see them in the Premier League. So I'm going to not say that we're going to smash them. I think it will still be a really hard game, and I could see it being a draw or even a loss, depending on who we put out. But I'm going to go for a 2-0 Arsenal win.
Yeah, I actually think this is going to be trickier than you're letting on, and it's not like I'm not saying it like I think Arsenal are like should worry about their Champions League hopes or anything like that, because it is the way it's set up. You could even afford to lose this game and still qualify easily if you get good results in the other ones. The only thing I will say, Arsenal away in the Champions League, it's a different beast, man. That's the only thing I'll say. It's something. I'll tell you what. If you win this game, though, I'll say you guys are turning a corner, because I don't mean it like you've been poor in the Champions League at all. Who am I to say that? We got bloody dumped out by Copenhagen and them, man. So I'm not speaking. I'm not speaking from on my high horse, but I do think Arsenal. We talked about it last year. Champions League is a new thing for them, for this team, and I think they're finding their feet. So away win, if you do win 2-0 or any victory at Atalanta, I'll tell you what, that's going to go a long, long way to helping you guys progress in this competition long term, because you'll be exercising some demons. Because Sporting away, Porto away, Lens away, PSV away. Yeah, there's been a bunch where you would expect. Yeah. Well, yeah, Bayern, that's a hard one. But the ones that I mentioned, those are ones that you would expect Arsenal to get wins at, and you've struggled. Yeah. So Atalanta, I would say, is probably somewhere in between the Bayern and those teams. They're a good team, but they're not quite Bayern. And I would say they're better than that other tranche of teams I just mentioned. So if you get a win there, I would say that would be a top result. But I think this will probably end up being a draw. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I think Arteta's going to weigh this up and go, you know what? We've got 7 other fixtures in the Champions League after this, 4 of which are at home, which we should bank wins, right? And then the other 3, hopefully we can get draws or wins to try and get. That should be enough to get us in that top 8. I'll be real. It should be. We've got City away in the league, and City are started like a bloody house on fire. They're moving mad.
Haaland.
We need to just juggle this, and so I'm going to play Nweri, like you said. I'm going to play Scully or whatever his name is, and a bunch of Heaven and all these youngsters and Maldini and all these weird like regen names that I'm hearing that you guys had on the bench. I'm going to play Sterling. I'm going to play like Kiwior. I'm going to play all of these guys. And I don't mean from the start for the youngsters, but I mean like give them good amount of minutes. And I'm just going to rotate. And if you lose, you lose. But you could easily get a draw or a win still with some of that rotation. And it gives a chance for your first teamers to rest for Man City. Because don't forget, you're playing Thursday, Atalanta, and you're playing City on Sunday.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree with you. But I think it will depend on the team. Because, I mean, if you look through those fixtures that we lost last year away in the Champions League, I'm seeing El Neni on the pitch. I'm seeing Kiwior starting. I'm seeing things that I don't want to see, right? So overall, I think it will really depend on who we play. I think if we play a full strength 11, we will win the game. I think if we play not a compromised 11, but like a rotated 11, I do think it could go draw or even a loss possibly. But I'm obviously going to back my team and go for a 2-0 Arsenal win. So what were you going to go for?
I've gone Atalanta 2-1 win because I do think you'll rotate, and I feel like it'll be a tactical decision that you're kind of not giving up on the game, but you're going to let it be with those players, and I understand.
Well, let's get on to the City Arsenal game because we are running out of time here. So City Arsenal, obviously, it's at the Etihad. I do think it will be a very cagey game, and I do think, unfortunately, we probably won't get a win there. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I just think it will be a cagey game on both sides, but I think both sides will have just about enough quality to score against each other. I think Haaland will continue his run of scoring, but I don't think he's going to get a hat-trick. Touch wood, fingers crossed that doesn't become a clip. And I think we'll try and skate out of there with a 1-1 draw, unfortunately. Obviously, no Odegaard as well is looking like, so we're going to be probably a little bit down defensive or creatively speaking or offensively speaking. So I think that will kind of hamper our chances a little bit too. What are you going to go for?
No, I think the game will go the way that you're saying, but I think Man City have got too much firepower for your makeshift midfield to survive. I think if you had Odegaard and you had Rice, or even one of them, I think you could come out of there with a draw. And if you had both of them, you may be even able to come out with
We will have Rice.
But you will have Rice, true. But you won't have
Rice.
Odegaard.
We just won't have Odegaard, yeah.
God, that's
I hope we'll have Rice because unless he gets injured or so, I don't know, something happens again in this game. But yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, I don't know if that changes anything in my mind, but yeah, I mean, you've got a better chance. But I'm going to go for Man City 2-1. But I wouldn't be shocked if you drew. And I know this sounds crazy because I predicted 2 Arsenal losses in a week, but I think the context around them will be very different. I think the Atalanta one, like I said, will be rotation and it's fine. The City one, I think, will be just.
We can't go into that game with any kind of like rotation that's not forced through injury or anything.
Yeah.
Fans are not going to accept that. He's got to go for our best 11 that he can put forward, and I'm interested to see what he's going to do with that cam position because Trossard I don't think worked in that position, so we're going to have to see what we're going to be able to do there. Quick wrap up of the scoreboard. So based off of last week, I think the score is now 13-4. I think we both predicted a Man United win, but both didn't get the score prediction right. And then for the Arsenal match, I predicted a win. And what did you predict? I think you predicted a Desmond 2-2 draw. Yeah. So we both did not get the correct score, but I at least got a point for the correct result in the end. So the gap continues, but it looks like we've got a chance for that gap to maybe claw back on your end because we've gone for a few different results here. So we'll see what happens and whether you can catch up to my brilliance like you have been able to do in FPL, where you have now just overtaken me. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, a comeback is always on. Remontada season for Anthony. But thank you, Anthony. We'll wrap it up here. Thanks to all the viewers, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers, guys. Take care.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.